quite beneficial.
Well, another great idea, Colin. It's absolutely fantastic. Now let's move on to music. Music can be an important activity for older people to engage them, to help keep them connected with others. It's also been proven to be very effective in treating the behavioural and psychological symptoms of dementia. Felicity, can you tell us about the role of music therapy in supporting someone with dementia?
Absolutely, thanks, Kyle. Yes, well, music therapy is an allied health that is used to address the emotional well-being, enhance mood, promote socialisation, promote quality of life, and manage the behavioural and psychological symptoms of dementia, which of course are relevant because we are talking about the use of alternative approaches to the use of restraints. It's important to know that it's a therapy, it's not an activity. And so the therapist actually designs programs to respond to the individual needs of each person who is living with dementia. But you might be interested to know some of the science behind this because it is a very well-researched therapy.
Yes, please.
We know that through engagement in musical experiences, particularly live music making, such as singing or playing an instrument, that there are unique music processing networks that are activated in our brain. In particular, music activates the mesolimbic system in our brain. It's what we would know as the pleasure network or the sex, drugs and rock and roll area of our brain. So when we use improvised music therapy with people living with dementia in a purposeful and a targeted way, we're regulating their autonomic nervous system. We activate the dopaminergic pathways in the brain, and this in turn activates a rich distributed bihemispheric neural network that can combat neurodegenerative decline. And it's through this regulation and activation of networks that music stimulates these interconnected brain structures that are commonly compromised in persons living with dementia. So it's activating sort of both hemispheres at both the cortical and the subcortical levels. So if we think about music and how it can regulate arousal levels, it's important. These are important when addressing psychological and behavioural areas of concern and reducing the need for pharmacological restraint. So this lovely diagram you see here, the Yerkes-Dodson law, indicates that we all operate best in this band of arousal known as optimal arousal. So hypoarousal occurs in people living with dementia when they're sleepy and they're apathetic or they're not responding to events happening in the environment or responding to staff or family. And conversely, the hyperarousal is when they're overstimulated or unable to regulate their arousal, which may lead to wandering, confusion, disorientation, distress, and agitation. So in music therapy, we use music to attune to the resident's arousal level, to meet them where they're at, and then gently help them regulate their arousal towards this optimal level. But this really requires a deep understanding and knowledge about how to apply music in terms of things like tempo, melody, rhythm, the vocal style that the therapist uses to match and clinically connect with this person. We use the term, which is very similar to Colin's comment before. We hope to see the person behind the dementia. So once musical connection's been made with this person, what the music therapist does is it adapts the music in the moment to help regulate the arousal, helping them to move either lowering their arousal if they're very agitated and wandering and distressed, or increasing their arousal if they're more apathetic and sleepy.
That is absolutely fascinating, Felicity. We're going to hear a little bit more about that in just a moment. But I've just got a question for you, because some aged care organisations are creating personalised playlists for the residents they support. But how do we make sure that these playlists are appropriate for the person?
Very good question, a tricky question to answer. And mainly because the way someone responds to music can change from day to day and from moment to moment, depending upon their mood, how stimulated they are, what time of day it is, because we know, for example, people living with dementia respond differently to different things depending what time of day it is, and what their musical preferences are. So let's take an example, a song that reminds a person of his or her spouse. that may lead to pleasant emotions one day, but the next day it might lead to more distressing emotions when they may suddenly realise that they've lost their spouse. So music can trigger different responses on any one day. But there are some kind of general basic rules when people are trying to design playlists. It's already been mentioned already, it's to find music that people connect with. Music that's popular when the person was in their late teens to their early 20s is sort of a bit of a rule of thumb here. And so once you identify what that music is, then try to work out which ones are the favourites and use those. Always consider culturally appropriate music. And try to avoid putting on headphones or earpods. Try to make sure that the music is played live, through a speaker rather than with earphones. And that's mainly because earphones are isolating, and we want people to actually connect with people around them, not to become more isolated. And also sometimes when people put earphones on, people just tend to put them on and then just leave them. We still need to watch and monitor what's happening so that the person with dementia doesn't become overstimulated.
I think there's some fantastic takeouts there for aged care facilities, and just playing endless Andre Rieu in every room of the facility is not going to help, is it?
No.
Absolutely. Right. So then can you give us a practical example of how music therapy can assist?
Absolutely. So I talked before about this concept of attuning to the arousal level of the person. And so I'm going to play a video now where a man named Peter is participating in one of our music therapy sessions. He's quite agitated at the beginning of the session. He often gets up and wanders around in the middle of the session. He's demonstrating that he's hyper-aroused and confused. And he sometimes can be quite aggressive. But you'll see here as he gets up, that I begin to connect with him.
Yeah.
And I've chosen music that I know he likes, and I'm adapting it in the moment to match his internal rhythm, so to speak. So looking at the way he's moving and adjusting the way I'm playing so that I stay connected to him. And once I am connected, I then reduce my tempo and I change the tone of my voice to bring his arousal level down and holding him with me the whole time. So it's a very gradual process.
That's I could talk to you all afternoon. I find this really fascinating. But where can families or carers go to for more information on music therapy?
Well, always people can contact us at the University of Melbourne and we can pass on information. But I'm really excited to inform you that we have a significant amount of funding from the National Health and Medical Research Council to fund this fabulous trial working with family carers of people living with dementia. And what we do is we train the carers, it's free, and we train the carers how to use music and reading in a really targeted way to learn how to understand how their loved one responds to the way they engage with them. And we're capturing and measuring their responses. And so we're really looking for volunteers to participate. Please make contact with us if you are a carer or you know a carer, a family carer who might benefit for being involved in our trial.
What a fantastic opportunity. So the address that we have up on the screen there is where they can go to for more information.
Please, yes. We'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Felicity. Thanks for that. Now, as you can see, there is such a variety of therapies and alternative approaches to medication available. Let's take a look at this video on a care innovation called Tavatuffle, which is developed for people with moderate